live. We're live everywhere. All right. Let's get this kicked off the right way. I am reviewing the biopic about a pioneer of women's wrestling, Mildred Burke. Is it any good? Is it any worth watching at all? We'll discuss it. I also break down each episode of Season 6 of Dark Side of the Ring. We're going to talk about it. How dark did it get? Was it about wrestling or just dark people who happen to work in wrestling? As you can see, I have a very cute kitty here with me as well. And what would we want to see in Season 7? What should they cover in Season 7? We'll talk all about that today on the Main Event Marks podcast. And I do not have an intro to play for you today because I have a different setup today, as you can see behind me, and just my equipment's different, which threw off my program and whatever. But yeah, we are live today again. I'm trying to go live on a Wednesday here, keep it consistent, so I can post the audio by tonight. Wrestling Wednesday. I apologize for the light behind me. It's not great, not good. Believe me, not good. But my new house has like 2 stories to it, and the air is independent on the first floor and second floor. And the air gave out on my second floor. Had an HVAC guy come out after 3 days of sweating my rear end off. He checked out. Apparently, the unit was in my attic. I don't really know much about HVAC, but the unit was in my attic, and the previous owner had sealed off the attic, so I had to unseal it, let the guy in, because it was sealed. The home inspector before I bought the house never checked it out. Which is crazy to me. But anyway, he got up there. He's like, oh, yeah, there was a leak in your unit. Everything is rusted out. It's a total loss. So, yeah, I'm currently working on getting, like, our bedroom, my office, everything was up there. And it's like 80-some degrees because there was a heat wave in the Midwest. I had to move everything downstairs. We're sleeping we have a living room and then a den, study, parlor, whatever the hell you want to call it. We're sleeping in that, the parlor, and I have all my equipment set up on my dining room table. It is an experience, I'll say. It's not a good time to be here, but I'm looking for window AC units just so I can tolerate being in my own damn office. But how's everybody doing? That's how my weekend, the last couple of days, have gone. How about y'all? Y'all doing good? Y'all hanging in there? Audio doing good, seems. Let's see. Let me check. Check. Good God, this program. All right. So we haven't started the official podcast yet, so I'm going to do that here. I was just waiting, giving it a couple minutes to hit the highlights there and kind of get into everything. But yeah, let's just get into it because we do have a lot to talk about today. I don't want to drag this on for all eternity. So here we go. This is the Main Event Marks podcast. I am your host, lifelong wrestling fan, former radio guy, cat and dog dad, and amongst the kings and queens of the ring, I am the joker of the deck. I am Troy. And today we are going to be talking about another pro wrestling biopic, whatever you want to call it, Queen of the Ring, about Mildred Burke. And we're going to be talking about Season 6 of Dark Side of the Ring on Vice TV. I'm finally all caught up on the show. I binged the hell out of it one week, and because I was only like maybe a couple episodes into Season 5, so I binged all the way through that, got all the way through Season 6. It's good, it's interesting. Every episode held my attention. Even, and I'll talk about it more, but Episode 1 was about the Hell in a Cell match, Undertaker and Mankind. And I was like, oh man, I heard this so many times, but it is what it is. It was actually a really good episode. It's free on their YouTube channel, so you can actually watch that one in full. I want to say they put episode 1 of every season for free as like a little taste, a little teaser on their YouTube channel. It's well worth the watch. Some episodes were much better than others. Some of them I was like, I mean, it's fine. But this movie, I got a lot of notes. I'll tell you that right now. I have a lot of notes, and I didn't. At first, I was like, I'm just going to watch the movie and then free ball it when I get on there. But then stuff started hitting me as the movie's going, because I did that with The Iron Claw. And things were just hitting me, and none of these notes are like in order per se. But Queen of the Ring was not what I expected at all. And like I said, I recently watched The Iron Claw, and I gave my opinion on it on a previous podcast. It was fine. It was better than fine. I liked The Iron Claw. It was a good movie. Obviously, it had some historical inaccuracies, but I'm not holding that. You know, it was close. It was close enough for rock and roll. I'm okay with it. You know, it's never gonna. No biopic is gonna be close. Like, for instance, I love the Queen biopic. Well, it's mostly just centered around Freddie Mercury, but Bohemian Rhapsody, and it is nowhere near historically accurate with a lot of things, but it was a really good movie, and some things were historically accurate. Other things were just like, wow, that's not even close. But it was entertaining. It was good. It was not over-the-top goofy for the most part, except for that scene in Bohemian Rhapsody where they supposedly came up with "We Will Rock You" and wrote that. That was really... I feel like that was super-duper goofy, but either way. Getting to this, let's just jump right into it, shall we? Since I'm talking about it, Queen of the Ring, about Mildred Burke. I did not know a lot about her. To start, I had heard stuff. I had heard other people in shoot interviews talking about her, but you know, and historians talk about her. But I hadn't really done a lot of research on her and dug deep into her. Just real quickly, this is like a real quick glossing over of her life here. Mildred Burke was a groundbreaking figure in professional wrestling, highly regarded as one of the toughest competitors of her era. Born Mildred Bliss of Coffeyville, Kansas in 1915, she began her wrestling career in the early 1930s, often taking on and defeating male opponents. She held the Women's Wrestling Championship for nearly 2 decades, successfully defending her title against formidable challengers like Gladys Killam Gillum and Mae Young. We'll talk about both of them with the movie. And was known for her alligator clutch signature move. Beyond her in-ring prowess, Burke was instrumental in advancing women's wrestling and bringing it to Japan during a tour of the 1950s and training future generations of grapplers. Her career was also marked by a tumultuous professional and personal relationship with her second husband and manager, Billy Wolfe, central figure in the movie, obviously. After the separation in 1952, Burke found herself largely frozen out of professional wrestling, controlled by the National Wrestling Alliance, NWA. Again, we'll talk about it more in the movie. In response, she established her own promotion, the World Women's Wrestling Association, WWWA. I did not know about that one until I started doing my research. Based in Los Angeles, to continue promoting women's wrestling internationally, Burke officially retired from in-ring competition in 1956 and later ran a women's wrestling school in California. She passed away from a stroke on February 18th, 1989 at the age of 73, leaving behind a legacy that earned her a posthumous induction into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2016 and other notable wrestling halls of fame. So there you go. She was obviously extremely popular during the time. There weren't a lot of women's wrestlers like there are now. It was nothing like today. But she was a pioneer. She was groundbreaking and very popular. And she was champion for like 20 years. So, and that proceeds or precedes, I should say, Fabulous Moolah, who, the WWF kept the belt on for a bazillion years until she finally lost it. So, either way, Mildred Burke, groundbreaking figure, and this movie was meant to capture all of that, and it captured most of that, but in the goofiest way possible. I have never seen such a cringy biopic, at least none that come to mind off the top of my head. I can't think of another cringier biopic than this. Was it entertaining? Sure, at times, whatever. But man, do they play fast and loose with history and just a bunch of other things. I'll kind of get into it. I'm not going to review the whole movie top to bottom. I have some notes on it. So there was just like the acting and the dialogue was terrible, in my opinion. Like this was supposed to be, this isn't some dramatized original script or whatever. This was supposed to be real people in real life that they're depicting, and it was cringe. Like just so much cringe. And a lot of this I was like, have you ever seen or heard people before? Have you heard people say words? Because I don't think you have. A lot of it was just so cartoonish. They also used a lot of terms. Keep in mind, this was like 50s, like the 40s and the 50s where this movie's taking place. And they're using a lot of terms and words that they did not use during that time. I didn't write down all of them. Just the way of speaking for a lot of characters was not good for the 40s and 50s. But for the biggest one that stood out to me was Mae Young. Her character comes in and she's very openly a lesbian in this movie, and they even say, "Oh, you're a lesbian," and it's like they say it. They said it a couple of times, and they made it known. She's out just like sleeping around with all these women in every town and whatever. That was not a thing, and as far as I know, Mae Young was not a lesbian, and like there were rumors that her and Moolah kind of, but it was I don't think it was ever confirmed. And I'm just like, wow, okay, you're just coming right out with it. In the 40s and 50s, again, I have to pound that home. Doesn't make a lick of sense, and I feel like it's incredibly disrespectful to Mae Young. Just be like, oh, she was openly lesbian. Okay, there's a goofy scene in the car. They're driving down the road where Billy's son drove Mildred like throughout most of the movie. He was like her chauffeur basically from town to town, and Billy drove himself. Well, they're driving down and she's fanning herself off. She's sweating, whatever, and she says something about, wouldn't it be great if they put something in these cars that kept us cool, and all these roads would just be smooth and paved from town to town. I'm like, my God. Like, no, I'm sure that at points in history, because obviously they had to invent air conditioning, and somebody had to say, maybe these roads should be, paved and not all gravel and dirt or brick, But what is this? And it's just like another tongue-in-cheek, like, aha, get it? Because, we're in the 40s. Like, it was so dumb. But that was one awkward scene. There was another one where Billy freezes Millie out of the NWA. Basically, and they make it seem like, oh, he got everybody under the NWA. I'm like, Billy Wolf did not get everybody in the NWA. But like offhand, like comments they make it seem like, oh, Billy made sure that it's all under the NWA. Now, like, okay. Or maybe I misunderstood the way, like, the wording was clunky. But basically, they let you know they're freezing Millie out because the NWA partnered with Billy Wolf, who had his own traveling troupe of women's wrestlers therefore the NWA is saying, well, we run these towns, you can't come in and wrestle. And that was how it was back then. And so Mildred goes, and she has her own traveling troupe of women. And so she says, well, I'm going to see about this myself. And she goes and approaches the NWA, and they let her into this meeting. There was a bunch of NWA promoters around. I don't know. I'm going to say this now. Jim Cornette was in this movie. He was like the president of the NWA. They never actually say his name, so I guess he's just generic NWA president. I don't know. But, yeah, they never actually give him a name. Why he's in this movie? Don't know. I guess because pretending to be in the wrestling business now is the only way that Jim Cornette can still be in the wrestling business. That's the only thing I can think of. But either way, the only other person in this meeting that speaks up is some dude, generic-looking brunette guy. And she's like, and who are you? And Jim Cornette's like, well, that's our promoter from New York, Vince McMahon. And I'm like, oh, my God. It's dumb. And he talked about, my little son, Vince Jr., asked me about something with women's wrestling, whatever. Like, come on. And as far as I know, like, if you follow Vince McMahon's life, him and his dad did not really talk or get along for the longest time, and he lived in some trailer park with his mom and stepdad in South Carolina, I want to say. But yeah, just all of this was like, they're just like jamming all this stuff in there. They do that with too much in this movie. They try to jam Easter eggs and references in there where it's like, first of all, like, you're writing this for like people who know wrestling, or you're writing the Easter eggs, I should say, for people who know what wrestling is. But it's like, this is not a movie, in my opinion, that if you really like wrestling, you're going to like. You're not going to love this film. But you're also putting stuff in there to explain wrestling to people, hoping that people who don't know wrestling will watch this movie. And it's bad. We'll get to that in a moment. But the Vince McMahon thing, I laughed out loud at that scene, and and it wasn't supposed to be funny. They're also way too open with wrestling lingo. During this time, I'm going to get super nerdy here for a second. During this time, wrestling was heavily protected. I remember, and they make it seem like everybody knows it's fake. Well, duh, and they're like just like openly talking about it. When like at the very beginning of the movie, Mildred and her mom go to a match, and Billy Wolf is in the main event, and his son just sparks up a conversation with her, talking about how it's all bullcrap and it's fake, and he's using like wrestling locker room terms, like he's telling her about the heels and the baby faces, and saying it's all scripted and whatever. Like, I'm like blown away by this. That would have never happened. Billy Wolf would have ended his own son's life if that was a real thing. Like, that's how hard they protected the business. People went to jail back then. Jail. To protect the business. They would get into fights. It was nuts. I want to say it was in the 80s. There was a guy whose name escapes me, but he couldn't get booked anymore, something like. He was basically on the outs. So to just completely kill his career off, he did some like news expose explaining the wrestling business and showing how to work and stuff like that with a news anchor. And people were shocked when he didn't show up like with his head separated from his body, floating up on a beach somewhere. That was in the 80s. This was the 40s and 50s. People took this seriously back then. So it was incredibly unrealistic. And it honestly keeps getting worse. They kept talking about scripts for the match. Well, that's not how this was scripted. You didn't script it this way. What's the script for this one? Like, nobody ever said that ever. And that's another thing where I am like, why is Jim Cornette in this? He rails against that word. He's like, literally nobody ever said anything about script. If you brought up the word scripts before a certain time in wrestling, you were talking about prescriptions, like medication, a script for meds. This was unbelievable. Also, the fact that they lead you to believe that Mildred Burke had been wrestling for a while, like doing the carnival scene, wrestling men and stuff like that, but she didn't know that it was all a work. She still, like, there's a scene where she's like, wait a minute, even the title matches are fixed? Like, they're all scripted too? Just, what are you talking about? At that point, Billy Wolf would have completely educated her in the business. This is just mind-boggling. They also made a big deal out of not going into buildings to, like, this was a big thing. Like, all the women were going to go in together, and they were like, oh, no, you guys are facing each other tonight. You can't go in together. Like, why not? Kayfabe. And they, like, explain what kayfabe is in this scene, that heels and faces can't be seen together going into the building. But they're literally all together all the time everywhere else. And it's fine. That was not a thing back then. Again. So no consistency. They didn't give a damn at all. They really tried to blur the lines a lot between fiction and reality. Oh, now the match is getting real. Oh, now it's no longer scripted. You know, that kind of junk. It was hard to keep up with a lot because I'm like, am I supposed to take this seriously now, or are we still effing off? It was dumb. Mildred Burke offhandedly tells George Wagner in, like, they're backstage chatting. You don't really know who the guy is, by the way, but I had to look it up to see what his real name was because she's talking to him. She said, you can still be gorgeous, George. And then later he becomes Gorgeous George. What? I don't think that was it at all. In fact, I know that was not it. That was not a thing. Dumb. But it foreshadows something later in the film that he becomes Gorgeous George. Billy Wolf, during a press conference, uses the whole, and I'm sure Scott Hall was not the one that came up with it, but that whole speech about good times don't last, or bad times don't last, but bad guys do. Whatever, like that. He did that whole thing during a press conference because, again, they're trying to squeeze in a bunch of Easter eggs for the Smarks, and I almost died of cringe right in my seat. They act like this is modern-day wrestling, by the way. Like, this is, like, they're not being time-appropriate with anything that they're doing. This is possibly, not even possibly, this is 100% the worst part of the film right here. They kill Gladys Gillum during a scene. She, like, because all the wrestlers hate, who was it? I'm trying to think here. June Byers. All the wrestlers hate June Byers. She's apparently a big, nasty, evil woman who once injured Mildred Burke for real by kicking her in the back of the leg during a shoot fight. And so she's a big old meanie, and everybody hates her. And Mae Young tells her, quit being stiff with the girls and whatever. And she basically says, nah, I'm gonna do what I want. And then she gets out in the ring with Gladys Gillum, who's apparently not feeling well going into the match. And June Byers chucks her over the top rope, which, again, would not have happened in front of the referee back in that time because that was... People just, they didn't do that. And it was a disqualification forever. But anyway, she throws her out. She hits the concrete outside, and then she starts convulsing. They take her into the hospital, and they're like, oh, there's nothing we could do. Her stomach ruptured, and she had a blood clot and whatever else. She lived to be an old woman and died of Alzheimer's. This was wild. It's not that it just didn't make sense, but it was like, these are real people you're talking about. and you're like, we need somebody to be killed because they're being irresponsible, whatever. And they didn't even make that huge of a deal about it. They did for like a scene, and then they move on. Like, Gladys died. Anyway, the championship. Like, what? Another thing, there were non-segregated crowds in the 40s and 50s in this movie. Okay. That was the modern wrestling thing I was talking about. They make it seem like it's modern-day crowds. There are people of all shades and colors throughout the crowd, everywhere they went. No, they only made a big deal about race once, and it was because Billy Wolf had hired 3 black female wrestlers to join his troupe, and they go into a hotel, and the guy behind the counter is like, oh, we don't serve coloreds around here, and whatever. And so they buy every room in the hotel so that nobody's uncomfortable or whatever. And yeah, so I don't know. That was like the only time they make a deal out of race. And I'm glad it wasn't like a big part of the movie. But at the same time, you don't have segregated crowds. Whatever. It doesn't make sense, again, for the time. Let's see. What else here? Oh, the final scene / match. They're trying to play it as a combo of like a work and a shoot match. Again, blurring the lines. It was really dumb. It made no sense. And it was like the big climax at the end of the movie. She finally beat June Byers she beat her up so bad that Billy Wolf threw in the towel and she retained her title. Okay. That was like the big like that was your crescendo. Yeah. And then let's see. Gorgeous George claimed at one point he was the biggest draw in the country, which may have been true at the time. Honestly, may have been true. But he was just like chilling in the crowd watching Mildred's match. What? And cheering her on. He was a heel. She was not. He would not have been in the crowd cheering for a babyface. Wouldn't have been in a crowd, period. But definitely not cheering her on. He was like right by her mom. It was madness. Let's see. Billy's son claims in the end that he married June Byers. That never happened. This one, I had to look at the weight disparity here and the height disparity because, for those that don't know, June Byers was played by Camille Brickhouse or whatever. I think it's. Does she still go by that, or is it just Camille? At one point, she was Camille Brickhouse. But anyway, large woman. And I'm talking like Rhea Ripley kind of large, not like, Nia Jax kind of large. But either way, I was like, okay, June Byers did not look like that. But I wanted to look up the disparity because they make it seem like June was some big, like, hulking, like, ass kicker. She was between 5'6" and 5'7" and weighed 150 pounds, which was an in-shape woman, a tiny bit on the taller side, but and then Mildred Burke was only listed as 5'2" and 138 pounds. Not a huge disparity. Height, sure, you got like 5'6", you got about 5 inches on her. Weight, you got 12 pounds? I mean, it's not like she's like jacked. The woman they got to play Mildred Burke looked fine, whatever, but she's a very skinny woman. Camille is effing jacked, like this. Okay. I didn't like the casting here for that. The final credits, by the way, claim that Gorgeous George was the most famous professional wrestler of all time. I guess it depends on your definition of fame. Did he live on in the hearts and minds of a lot of people? Did he inspire a lot of people? Sure. Yes. you could say the same thing about superstar Billy Graham. No, he didn't. Like, I think Gorgeous George, like, traveled a lot more and sold out more arenas. And he was legitimately, like, one of the biggest draws of his time. Huge. And he inspired a lot of people. That is 100% true. He was Macho Man Randy Savage's favorite wrestler. That's why he actually used Gorgeous George's theme. Gorgeous George used to come out to the that pomp and circumstance. So Macho Man took that and the robes and whatever from him as well. Ric Flair took his look from him. Muhammad Ali took a lot of his promos from him. So he did inspire a lot of people. But the most famous professional wrestler of all time, come on, I don't know. Let's see. Trying to get to something I haven't touched on yet. Toni Storm did a pretty good American Southern accent. Not bad at all. I've never heard of the woman she played, Clara Mortensen. Never heard of her. But apparently, in the movie, she was the women's world champ out of California. And she refused to drop the belt to her and her crew that like went around with her. Refused to have her drop the belt to Mildred. So Mildred shot on her and took it by force, basically. And then we never heard from her again. She disappeared. Cool. But Toni Storm did a good job with it. I had no idea, by the way, Naomi was in the movie. And I don't know which one of the black female wrestlers she played, but she played one of them. They never said her name. So Britt Baker and Mickie James also make cameos. They're like learning to wrestle. Britt Baker can pass for, I think she is in her 20s. So she could pass for that. Mickie James looks her age. Like, she looks fine. I'm not saying that, but she looks her age. Why would I think she's in her early 40s. Why would a 40-some-year-old woman be training to wrestle? That's nuts. They're like, we got to get somebody who knows how to take a bump, I guess, and looks good, and throw her in here. Last note I have is Walton Goggins plays Jack Pfeffer, who's a pretty interesting character. I'll talk more about him in Dark Side of the Ring, actually, believe it or not. But yeah, Jack Pfeffer. And Walton Goggins is great in everything he does. So that was all I've got for Queen of the Ring. If I had to rate it out of 10, 7, 6.5 maybe. But it's between a 6 and a 7. I'm leaning closer to 6. Like, it was okay. I don't regret watching it, but man, it was like I was 10 minutes in and I was ready to give up on it because it gets goofy right away. But let's get into Dark Side of the Ring, shall we? I wanted to touch on Season 6. It just happened, actually. So I'm going to go through episode by episode. I'm not going to break it all down. I don't know if I like what they picked for the finale. Personally, I would not have put that as a finale. It was a good episode, though. I really liked it. I really liked I liked that episode, but it wasn't like extra special, oh man, I've been waiting for this one kind of deal, you know? Episode 1 was Mick Foley, Hell in a Cell, and it kind of just followed around Mick and leading into the match, what he went through during the match. They broke it all down. They talked to the referee. They talked to for the first time ever that I know of, they talked to the WWE medical guy, the doctor on hand, who took care of Mick at the scene and after. I hadn't seen or heard from him before, and I guess he was the one everybody was like wanting to hear from, actually, because they're like, oh, we haven't heard his perspective before. So it was cool to hear from him. It was sad. Mick talking about what he's dealt with from his career of doing really stupid things, and the effects are exactly what everybody told him would happen. They went a little bit into, because they talked to his family. They talked to his wife, his daughter, and one of his sons, and what they were going through, like with their dad doing all this. His daughter and his wife have a much more negative look back on all this. His son wasn't cool with it, but at the same time, he's like, yeah, my dad's Mick Foley, hell yeah. And he looks like his dad too, by the way. Either way, yeah, Mick did a lot. They got into his Last Man Standing, or not Last Man Standing, I'm sorry, his I Quit match with The Rock, where he took like 11 chair shots when The Rock said he was only going to give him like 4 or 5, and he just kept freaking going while Mick was handcuffed, by the way, so he couldn't defend himself. That was really crappy of him. The Hell in a Cell itself was cool to hear about, though, but it was one of them. I've heard about it so many times. They had audio of The Undertaker, but he wouldn't actually appear, which I get. A lot of WWE contracted people don't. Episode 2, Ludwig Borga, Hellraiser from Helsinki. I knew a little bit about this guy. I didn't know how bad he was. But basically, the whole thing was about, man, this guy's a real piece of crap, isn't he? Like, which he is, don't get me, or was, he's dead now. But, yeah, Ludwig Borga was a terrible person. He had an SS tattoo on his leg. And my favorite was Jim Cornette responding to, he apparently had an exit-only tattoo above his butt. And Jim Cornette's reaction to that was just awesome. He's like, do you have to have a billboard saying not to F you in the ass? Was like walking down the streets like, oh, don't F him in the ass. Oh, thanks for letting me know. His whole rant about it was great. Ludwig apparently abused various substances, was very anti-gay, anti-anybody who's not a white a Danish person. So he was not a good dude. He became a politician for a little bit, and then he got like real bad brain damage from, I want to say, substances. I can't remember off the top of my head now. And because he like OD'd or something, and when they brought him back, he just wasn't the same. He had to leave office. Basically, he took his own life at the end. He lived a terrible life, I'll say. Episode 3, Big Van Vader, they glossed over a lot of stuff, but they talked about how he got into wrestling. He was, like, almost right away, he was taught to, really go at him, like, hardcore, stiff. Like, he was very stiff with his opponents. That's why him and Stan Hansen fought so well literally fought over in Japan so well. And then they went over him breaking the back and ending the career of this job guy in WCW. I remember hearing about that, like, way after the fact. And then it talked about his WWF career tanking. They glossed over a lot of stuff. I mean, they had a lot to cover, but yeah, his WWF career, it was really sad, especially when you consider what it was supposed to be, what it could have been. I had heard the stories from multiple people about him and Yokozuna being sent to the Duke weight loss clinic and smuggling in fried chicken, and which is why they were actually gaining weight and not losing weight, or they would just stay the same size. He didn't take care of himself. He didn't wash his gear. Like, they didn't really touch on all that, but that was a big thing. And, yeah, his WWF career did not go well. But they make it seem like he left WWF, he had nothing going for him, and then a few years later he died. That, they really brushed over the end of his life. He did do some appearances at like the con circuit, the convention circuit, and he wrestled, like, he had a big thing with Will Ospreay in the in the independent scene. He went back to Japan for a little bit. Like, he did stuff. So it wasn't like his career was completely over after WWF. So, I don't know. I feel like they brushed over a lot of stuff. And unfortunately, he got ill and was gone too soon. Some of the personal stuff about his personal life I had no idea about, though. That kind of sucked. Tony Atlas, episode 4. I hate to speak ill, but like, he's still alive, obviously. But man, he's dumb. He is a dumb man. He claims he could have possibly got brain damage when somebody attacked him and he busted his face and busted his head open when he was young, and he claims he might have got brain damage from it. I just think he's a stupid dude. And he enjoys women walking on his face. Like, he will buy certain shoes to get women to walk on his face. And he says it's not an arousal thing. He enjoys it. It calms him down. Like, what? And a lot of the stuff he said in here, it just made him seem like a very unsympathetic figure because he's just so dumb. It's hard to feel bad for somebody who's just so dumb. But maybe you feel different. I don't know. But it really shocked me, some of the stories he shared. And Jim Cornette tried defending Dick, not Slater, crap. I can't even. Dusty Rhodes' old partner there, Murdoch, Dick Murdoch. That's who I'm thinking of. Everybody that was around him knows, and he was proud to show off he was a card-carrying KKK member. And Jim Cornette was like, oh, that was just a rib. It was just a joke or whatever. Everybody else like, no, that's very real. But Jim Cornette has a history of defending that kind of stuff. So, of course, it's just a rib. Also, he was handing out flyers to a Klan meeting, and he gives one to Tony, and he's like, oh, can I bring Tommy Rich? He's like, yeah, sure, bring him along. And they drive up there and start getting, and Tommy was like, what the hell is this that we're going to? I don't know why he asked at the last second, but he hands him the flyer, and he's like, dude, it's a Klan meeting. What the hell? And then they start shooting shotguns at him. Some of that might be exaggerated because it's wrestlers, whatever. But I totally buy this, whereas Jim Cornette is like, oh, it was just a rib. It's just, they're messing with him. Like, what? No. Come on, Jim. Jimmy boy. Again, he has a history of defending this stuff. But, again, Tony Atlas, not a smart individual. The original superstar, Billy Graham, that was a good episode. It really sucks. It seemed like when they took the world title off him, that really, broke him. Like, dude, you lost to Bob Backlund and just lost your smile, literally. They put the belt on Opie Cunningham there, the Howdy Doody, Mr. Bob Backlund, one of the most boring, milquetoast, lame wrestlers, world champions I've ever seen, and he held that belt forever. But yes, I don't understand it. I do understand it, I guess. They explain it. They're like, well, it's a babyface territory. No matter how good the heel draws, which I think is stupid, they put it on a babyface. So they got the belt off him, and it, broke him. Because he's like, well, I'm the top drawing guy you got, and you took the belt off me, and it just, effed with him mentally. It's hard to feel bad for him, though, because he was such a douche. He was a proponent of using steroids, and they literally destroyed his body to the very last. It seems like he might have maybe, hopefully, cleaned himself up at the end, spiritually and mentally or whatever, and made amends with his kids, who his son flat out took his mom's maiden name because he hated his dad so bad. And his daughter said he was more interested in being superstar than he was in being our dad, which, yeah, I mean, it's really sad, but that seems to be the way it was. But yeah, that was an interesting episode. I actually liked the character of superstar Billy Graham. As I mentioned earlier, he inspired a lot of careers like, Gorgeous George did. I mean, if you look at characters like Hulk Hogan, took a lot from him. Scott Steiner took from him. I mean, I guarantee there are countless others that don't even realize that they're taking from superstar Billy Graham. But he was great. Uh, could you say boring? Sure. I mean, he wasn't the typical great wrestler, but he was the New York style wrestler of the time. So he was a big beefy man. Damn it. Episode 6. This was hard to watch, but it was a good episode. It was Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert. I missed a lot of his stuff because he did a lot of territory stuff. Like a lot of Florida, Tennessee, stuff I wouldn't have watched. So I know about him. I haven't seen a lot about him. But Eddie Gilbert was, everybody said he was genius. They wish he would have stuck around longer. All that. I did not know he was married to Medusa at one point. That's, and they divorced amicably because he said he wasn't right and it wasn't right to keep her in that situation, so he divorced her. But he still loved her and whatever. And I can't remember. He passed away just like randomly. I wasn't aware of how he passed. Gilbert. Let's see. Wrestler. Yeah. I got to remind myself because I know people get mad if you get it wrong. He had a massive heart attack in his sleep when he in his apartment in Puerto Rico. That's right. He went to Puerto Rico to book again because places weren't letting him book anymore. He kind of burned a lot of bridges or they lost faith in him, whatever. And he went back to Puerto Rico to book and never came home alive. So that was sad. His brother Tommy Gilbert, or Doug, was it Tommy Gilbert or Doug Gilbert? I think it was Doug Gilbert. He was a douche. The only reason he got any jobs ever was because of Eddie, and he was hired, like he had various employment opportunities because of Jerry Lawler as well. And on television, he calls Jerry Lawler, to clean it up, a lover of the young ones on television. And like that burned all the rest of his opportunities. They're like, Jerry Lawler's like, okay, bye. Like, duh. You can't just come out there and say that about, I think at that point he might have been employed by him. So yeah, at least Lawler vouched for him at the very least. But yeah, Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert. I wish I would have seen more of him. First time I actually heard of him, by the way, I'm always reminded about this. He was in those Legends of Wrestling video games. Does anybody remember that? They were fun. Let's see. Yeah, because Heroes of Wrestling was that awful pay-per-view that everybody makes fun of. Wrestling game. Let's see. It was on GameCube. That tells you how long ago it was. Yeah, because the first one was Legends of Wrestling, and it actually had like Hulk Hogan, Bret Hart, RVD, Jimmy Snuka, Terry Funk, Road Warriors, Jerry Lawler, and a couple others in there too. It was a fun game. I liked it. You went around the territories, and then they had Showdown Legends of Wrestling. I don't remember the order because they did have a Legends of Wrestling 2 for various systems that had like Piper and Andre and whatever in it. That game is actually the first time I heard of Sabu as well, because I know a lot of ECW fans are going to hate me for that, but I had never heard of Sabu until that game. So I was like, who the hell is this guy? But that helped me out. I was really young, really only watched a little bit of WCW in the 90s. I was a WWF kid, though, but that also taught me about what the hell the territory system was, even though it was fake, Either way. Episode 7, Truth, Lies, and Billy Jack Haynes, was wild. They covered his career, but they glossed over a lot of things. What I got out of that episode is nobody liked him except Ken Patera. Why Ken Patera liked him? Don't know. He acted like, oh yeah, Billy Jack. He was fun to hang around. He was a cool guy, whatever. But also, and then he would turn right around and be like, he was a lying, terrible SOB. Okay, so why was he a nice guy that you liked hanging around? I don't get it. Couldn't trust a word the guy said, but whatever. I don't get it. But yeah, Billy Jack Haynes told a lot of a lot of whoppers, and then they covered a lot of when he was losing his mind, and all these shoot interview places kept giving him work. It was like, come on, spout your craziness on the shoot interview. It'll do great numbers. He is apparently, I think that's the one. Jim Cornette referred to him as like the Forrest Gump of crime, because according to him, he was everywhere all the time. Whenever there was a crime going on, he was there. He was at Watergate, damn it. He saw them. But yeah, and if he wasn't there, he'd figure out a way to jam himself in there some way, shape, or form. Giggity. But yeah, and then the weirdest part is there's like, oh, we actually got contacted by Billy Jack Haynes. He wanted to be on camera and give interviews from jail. So they're coming in, interviewing him in jail, but he's got his lawyer off to the side, and he's not answering anything, because everything they ask him, he's like, I probably shouldn't talk about that, or his lawyer's like, maybe don't say anything. So, like, what was the point of that? Just to say, oh, we got an interview. He didn't say a damn thing, but by God, we got an interview. For those that don't know, I actually covered this about a month ago at this point, I think. He's accused of ending the life of his ex-wife, and like they said he's unfit to stand trial because he's so mentally unwell. So his stepdaughter basically is suing him for like damages or whatever. Which if you're unfit to stand trial, how can you be sued? I don't, the legal system in this country is weird. But anyway, Blood, Fire, and the Original Sheik was episode 8. That's another one I don't know a lot about. The Sheik. I know some about the Sheik, but mostly from like stories shared by like Jim Cornette and other people like Sabu, and his kind of stuff. Like, he kind of started all the craziness with like ECW and all that crap. That it's not my thing. I think he wasn't a very good wrestler. He just threw fireballs, punched people, used weapons. They said he had blades on the ends of his fingers for him to cut people with. He would use a pencil. Him and Abdullah would just stab the hell out of each other. That's not a wrestling match to me. I do not enjoy the Sheik's way of wrestling, because it's not wrestling. It's garbage. That's why I don't like the Sandman. You hit people with things. Cool. What else do you do? Do you do an actual move? A side slam? A leg lock? Something. And of course, he's the Sheik, so I think he did the camel clutch. But I don't know. Other than that, episode 9, the Scream Queen Daphne. This one actually got me choked up. This was a really sad episode. Daphne was great. I loved her run in TNA. I didn't realize how short it was. The fact that they got to the part where she played the governor, and she was doing a Sarah Palin impression. And I believe she actually said the line, I can see Russia from my house. Like, it was so stupid. But it was a Vince Russo thing. It'll be topical. We'll bring in somebody to pretend to be Sarah Palin. God. I think the election was way over by that point, too, because I think it was like 2010. Cool. But that was a thing. I thought she was a good wrestler. She had a good look. She cut good promos whenever she did. And it was really sad to hear about her mental state. Another thing, I didn't know she was basically answering a casting call for actors in WCW. That was nuts. Blew my mind. I thought she was a legit wrestler before that. But she did good. That was another one. Life gone way too soon due to mental illness. And it was really sad. It seemed like she had a really good support system around her, too. So, man, if there's no hope for that, it really kind of black pills you a little bit. But Yeah, just lean on the ones that love you, man. Like seriously, that was really sad. This was the season finale. Again, I don't think it was season finale worthy, but it was a good episode. Was Becoming Mohammed Hassan, who I have a Jax figure of, by the way. I got him in a 2-pack with Davari. Mohammed Hassan, that one was a weird one because on one hand, I hated the character, hated everything they did with it, because, like, for as much as people say Vince McMahon was a genius, and at times he was also a complete moron that didn't understand anything. And this was one of those things. Why was that character a heel to begin with? The things he was saying to begin with, if you slightly alter them, he's a babyface. But they're like, no, this guy's a heel because he's being treated like crap and people are being racist against him because of something that other people that kind of look like him did. And so now he's a heel. Wait, what? Shouldn't he be the babyface? Because people are like, man, you know what? He's right. I feel bad for him. He shouldn't be going through all this stuff. But then he steers into it and is like, you know what? I actually am like those people. I actually am going to go full, like, hardcore Terry kind of Muslim. You know, like the radical Muslim stuff that people talk about. That was the antithesis of the character. But they're like, no, we need to steer into it to make him a mega heel. That'll be it. And then we're going to put the world title on him. We're going to put the world title on a Terry. Like, whoa. It started off weird because he's, like he pointed out, he's like, I'm Italian from New York. He's not Arab. He's not Muslim. It was kind of, I don't like the cultural appropriation stuff because I'm like, dude, like, get over it. Like, it is what it is. But it is a little weird because he wasn't just playing an Arab. He was playing an Arab-American Muslim, and he's not that. But I don't know. I can kind of excuse it a little bit with the actor thing, the Hollywood actor thing. Like, he's playing a role, whatever. But it got so convoluted and so weird. And then they ended this dude's career because they're not like, oh, we're going to cool you off and bring you back and do something else with you. Because he was a good wrestler. He had a good look. He was good on the mic. But they're like, we don't like the character anymore. We had to literally kill you off. So bye-bye. You're fired. He said that he was about to buy a house. He was about to close on a house here shortly. And he asked Johnny Ace, John Laurinaitis, whatever. He's like, hey, I need to know what's going on. I'm closing on a house soon. And he's like, and he said, Johnny, like, patted him on the shoulder. He's like, don't buy the house. Like, holy cow, man. It's so effed. And like I said, he was good. If AEW was around back then, I like, he would have had a place to go. He would have just dropped the gimmick, and he would have showed up doing something much better. But then, you know, Sean Davari goes to, or I guess at the time they call him Khosrow Davari, whatever, and then he was just Davari. But Sean Davari ends up going to TNA. They change his name to Sheikh Abdul Bashir, put him in like a Kevlar vest and camo, like he's going to war. And the beginning of his theme song are planes crashing. God dang it, Vince Russo. What is wrong with you? It's all kind of bad, but at least Davari had a life after wrestling. But Mohammed Hassan there, Mark Magnus, whatever his real name is, he knuckled down. He became he became like a principal. He went through college, put himself through college, became a principal, and now he works in education somehow. He's like in control of like the state special ed department or something like that. I can't even remember, but he did well for himself. So good for him. He got out of wrestling, doesn't have to take bumps for a living. He'll make appearances every once in a while or at least he was, as Muhammad Hassan, and people cheer him now because they're like, cool, whatever. Like they like the guy, they don't like the gimmick. And like I said, if that was real life, or whatever, if you're actually going with what he's talking about, he should have been a babyface. But no, they're like, oh, actually, he's a Terry. I'm keeping it clean for YouTube, by the way. I hope you guys know what I mean when I say Terry. But what should we be looking for looking ahead to Season 7? I had a couple of ideas. It's starting to rain. Yay. Is it rainy where everybody else is? Like, it has just been nonstop rain all spring and now into the summer. Just days and days of, and like floods. I'm like, everything floods because it rains so much. I'm not even joking. Sick of it. And then like I said, we had a heat wave. So that on top of it is just great. Closing out this podcast, so I did want to talk about some ideas I had for Season 7. I'll get to the things I have to kind of explain first. The first one, I mentioned him earlier. I think it would be cool that a couple of these go way back, so I don't know if they'll actually do it. Because, I mean, you have to be able to interview people, and they usually try to get at least one or two people that were there or related or whatever. I don't think you're going to get that with these first two. You would have to just talk to historians. The first one would be Jack Pfeffer. And the reason why I think he would make a good, interesting episode was he was an influential and controversial professional wrestling promoter and booking agent whose career spanned from 1924 to 1969. Starting in the mid-1920s, he gained prominence by promoting Eastern European heavyweights in the United States and became a key figure in the powerful New York wrestling scene. He even managing the finances and scouting talent for a dominant trust of promoters. However, which the Gold Dust Trio, which I'll get to here in a minute, by the way. However, a falling out in the early 1930s led Pfeffer to infamously expose professional wrestling as fake to the mainstream press, revealing the predetermined nature of matches and theatrical elements, which earned him a controversial reputation, to say the least. He was persona non grata after that. Despite being ostracized by many in the industry, Pfeffer continued to promote for decades, known for his freak characters, such as the Angels, and introduced careers of notable wrestlers like Buddy Rogers, and was instrumental in promoting women's wrestling pioneers. That's why he was in the Mildred Burke movie, Queen of the Ring. Though his later career saw him booking knockoff wrestlers with names similar to bigger stars, Pfeffer remains a significant and imaginative figure in wrestling history. Like, when I say knockoffs, he would promote people like, come see Hobo Brazil, and people like that, you know. I don't even know half of the ones. Let's see if I can look up a couple here, because I'd seen the Hobo Brazil one. Jack Pfeffer knockoff. Let's see. There were a few blatant ripoffs. He had Chicago. Okay, so he did wrestling in Chicago, which is funny. I guess What Culture has like a whole article, which of course they do. Oh, these are not all Jack Pfeffer. Okay, they're just going with generic knockoff wrestlers, because one of them was Dick Foley. Bruno Sammartino, I know they had Hobo Brazil, Bummy Rogers instead of Buddy Rogers. That's one. Okay. Bruno San Martino instead of San Martino. So he slipped an N in there. So it's like, it's close enough where it's like you get in there and you're like, wait, is that who they said it was on the poster? It's like, yeah, kind of. But either way, he left behind a vast collection of records now housed at the University of Notre Dame. I think that would make for a funny, dark side. And back then, wrestling was a lot more serious, and very mafioso type. A whole episode on Jim Barnett would also be good. I know they covered him a lot in Season 5's Black Saturday, but Jim Barnett is a very interesting figure. I think could make a whole episode, honestly. And they glossed over some of the stuff with Black Saturday. I think they could go deeper there. But the Gold Dust Trio, I also think from around that same time I talked about with Jack Pfeffer would be a good episode. Again, it's very, very much older. But so the Gold Dust Trio comprised of dominant world heavyweight champion Ed Strangler Lewis, his shrewd manager Billy Sandow, and creative visionary Joseph Toots Montt. Revolutionized professional wrestling in the 1920s, recognizing that legitimate hours-long grappling matches were losing audience interest. Yeah, go figure. They introduced slam bang Western-style wrestling, which incorporated elements of boxing, Greco-Roman, and freestyle wrestling with theatrical showmanship. They pioneered modern promotional tactics, including time limits, signature maneuvers, ongoing storylines, and the concept of touring with a stable of wrestlers, effectively establishing the first nationwide wrestling promotion. The partnership of the Goldust Trio, despite their immense success, eventually dissolved in 1928 due to the combination of internal power struggles and disagreements. A key factor was significant disagreements between Toots Montt and Max Baumann, Billy Sandow's brother, leading to a him or me ultimatum from Montt. To Montt's surprise, Sandow chose his brother, leading to Montt's departure from the group. Additionally, Billy Sandow grew frustrated with Ed Lewis's declining conditioning, contributing to their eventual split as well. These internal conflicts, fueled by strong personalities and business disputes, ultimately led to the breakup of the innovative trio. So, there's a lot of interesting stuff to talk about with that episode, obviously. And they can kind of dive into the lives and careers of these three guys, the power struggles and all that stuff. But again, it would be told from historians, and it would really be like an old school history documentary kind of thing. Another one, more people. These last two are more modern. Before I get into my final three. Mitsuharu Misawa, I think, would make a good one because he's obviously a legendary Japanese wrestler, but he founded Pro Wrestling Noah in June of 2000 following a mass exodus from All Japan Pro Wrestling, which was the dominant wrestling promotion in Japan in the 1990s. As president and the top star of Noah, Misawa continued to wrestle his signature hard-hitting, high-impact style, despite the culminative toll on his body from decades in the ring. Tragically, on June 13th, 2009, during a tag team match in Hiroshima, Misawa collapsed in the ring after taking a backdrop suplex from Akitoshi Saito. He was pronounced dead at the pronounced dead at the hospital at 46 years old, with his death attributed to spinal damage and the extensive injuries he had accumulated throughout his career, leaving a profound void in the wrestling world. So it could follow, his highs and lows in the beginning, going through All Japan mostly, and being the innovator that he was, some of the amazing matches he had in the 90s, and then the mass exodus from All Japan, kind of the fall of All Japan during that time in the public perception, the rise of Pro Wrestling Noah, and then, him dying in the ring. That's a good one. They could also, speaking of dying in the ring, they could also talk about Perro Aguayo Jr., perhaps. I don't know if there's enough to make a whole episode out of that, but maybe. I mean, they have stretched some things out before, so, maybe. Another one is is Pat Patterson as a whole, but two specific things. The first one is dealing with all the stuff he did with being a gay man in the wrestling world at a time when that was not accepted and not really looked fondly upon by anybody. Some people were, whatever about it, but other people were not. So you could talk about all the stuff he had to deal with that. And also, in 1992, Pat Patterson, along with other WWF officials like Terry Garvin and Mel Phillips, was accused of sexual harassment and abuse of underage ring boys. Former ring boy Tom Cole alleged that Pat Patterson groped him and engaged in sexual harassment when he was 14 years old. Another former announcer, Murray Hodgson, also brought sexual harassment charges against Patterson. While Patterson initially resigned from the company, he was later rehired after Hodgson rescinded his allegations, and a private investigation reportedly cleared Patterson. The scandal, which coincided with WWF's steroid trial, significantly damaged the company's reputation and led to dismissal and lawsuits. I think Terry Garvin, I want to say, was found to be in the wrong there. Pat Patterson, they never did find that he did any wrongdoing, but he always had that around his neck for literally the rest of his life and career in the WWF, and people looked at him differently. Sid, I just watched Psycho Sid in an interview the other day. I don't know how old the interview was, but he was talking about, like, Pat was coming on to him, and he thought he was going to have to beat him up or something. Like, I don't know. Fair, and Bruce Pritchard maintains that all of that is incredibly unfair, and it's only because he's openly gay, and people are just blaming him for stuff that he never did. Maybe. I don't know, but they could dive into that and talk to the people who would know or might know. The last three I had that don't really need any explanation are the dissolution of WCW. I know they've covered it a bit in different episodes, but this they could just talk about, like, just kind of the whole shebang of the company mergers, of, like, Time and Warner Entertainment, and putting that together. And then what was the last company they sucked up that was really kind of the end of it? Or maybe it was the Time Warner merger that was the end of it. But that one, that was a big thing leading into the end. They could talk about, Vince Russo and Eric Bischoff going back and forth, just the constant behind the scenes bullcrap going on. I know they have a whole show about it called Who Killed WCW, which I'm getting into now, but it would make for a fun episode, and then they could kind of save, like, the last third of the episode just talking about the final episode of Nitro. What led to it, who was there, who wasn't there, why or why not, all that stuff. And again, I know they talked to people about that for Who Killed WCW. They don't even have to, they could reuse some of that footage and some of the interviews, put it together for this, and talk to some other people who have outside perspectives and see what they thought. We've heard a lot from the outside people, so, whatever, but still, it could be fun. The dissolution of the NWA would be another one. Obviously, NWA's back, but nothing like it was before. That was a very up and down road. And at one point, the NWA was the wrestling in the entire world. So, talk about the rise of the NWA and what finally killed it in the end. There are multiple factors, but, just go into all that and interview people that were there or related to people who were there, and historians or whatever. I think there's a lot of meat on the bone for that one. And then finally, I think a good season finale, 2-part season finale, like they did with Chris Benoit, would be Vince McMahon. Just his whole career, man. That's why I said 2-parter for that one. Vince McMahon, everything about him. The scandals, the lawsuits, the feuds, the selling of the company, everything. And the current garbage that he's going through. I know they covered it a little bit in, I don't even remember what freaking episode it was now, that they kind of gloss over it a little bit at the end. They're like, and jumping forward, he's going through these lawsuits. Like, okay. But, excuse me, I think they could get into it more in depth. I mean, they've covered various bits and pieces of it in, like, the Jimmy Snuka episode and different stuff with Hulk Hogan and whatnot, but I don't know. There's a lot of meat on that bone. That's why I said 2-part episode with that one. But I would like to hear from you guys what you think. Who do you think or what do you think they should cover in Season 7? Because they will have a Season 7. I'm looking forward to it. Those are the only ones I could think of off the top of my head without doing, too much more research. But, yeah. Let me know down in the comments section. Also, I didn't do a good job with promoting myself today, but if you could follow me on social media right here. It's on X and Instagram. It's where I'm the most active, at Marks_on_media. I'm also on Facebook. It's Marks on Media Tube on Facebook because Marks on Media was already taken. You could follow me or subscribe to me on YouTube. That would be greatly appreciated. It's at Marks on Media on YouTube. And on Rumble, I have dose channels, one for this podcast and one for my Marks on Media stuff. The Marks on Media is rumble.com/C/Marks on Media. There on the screen. And you can also go to rumble.com/C/main event Marks. And I will greatly appreciate it if you follow me on there and watch all the archives and whatnot. I post brand new stuff every single day, new videos on YouTube. Not every day on Rumble, but when I have because sometimes on YouTube all I have are a bunch of shorts. I post at least 4 to 5 shorts a day. So, but yeah, I try to keep up with all of that, and I try to do a new podcast each and every week. This will also be put up in audio form if you don't want to catch the VOD later. You would rather listen. If you came in late, I'm on Apple Podcasts. I'm on Spotify. Basically all over the damn place. You can find Main Event Marks, not Marks on Media. But if you look for the Main Event Marks, wherever you listen to podcasts, you'll find us. You'll see the logo. And you can listen to all the back archives, which are good. We have... this is episode 195, but there are also a ton of bonus episodes on top of that you can check out. So it's well over 200 episodes. I'm willing to bet it's around 250, somewhere in that market. But yeah, anyway, thank you all for joining me today. I appreciate it. Appreciate you all hanging out, talking classic wrestling with me, hearing me talk about classic wrestling. Man, it is like a tsunami a monsoon outside. Frickin' nuts, man. Thank God I mowed the lawn yesterday. It is just... I heard a new term over the last week. A gully washer. Never heard that before. Apparently it's a Midwest term. I've lived in the Midwest almost my entire life. Never heard that from anybody. But I heard that over on the weather from some Midwestern chick. And I was just like... Even my mom had to Google what the hell that was. I was like, okay. But anyway, thank you all for joining me. I will see you all next week. I don't know what I'm covering yet, but I will figure it out and let you all know on social media, or you'll see it in the title of next